Afternoon of the week. All right, we're going to go ahead and pause the music. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on this Thursday afternoon to learn more about addressing staff burnout at your childcare center. Before we get started, I do want to let everyone know about our Hi Mama activities. If you haven't seen or used our Hi Mama activities, I highly recommend you do. Lesson planning is hard. It is time consuming. On Hi Mama, we have an activity database of hundreds and hundreds of activities. You can filter by age, by domain, by theme of what's going on. What are your children's interests right now? You can save your favorite activities for easy access. Please sign up for our Hi Mama activities. You will get an email straight to your inbox with new activities every week. And we have hundreds of new activities coming your way soon. So I highly recommend you sign up now. Kaya will post a link in the chat. I think she may have already. There it is again. Please sign up. We have some fabulous activities to support you on your lesson planning on there. Now, before we get started, as always, we want to do a quick disclaimer that the content we are sharing with you today is not personalized legal or financial advice for your center. Our goal today is for you to leave with some fabulous tips, tricks, and techniques for you to take into your classrooms, into your centers, into your homes. But if you are looking to make any big changes, we do want to make sure you are consulting the right people, like a legal or a financial advisor, to guide you through those big changes. We're now going to give a listen to our land acknowledgement.
Hi Mama acknowledges that our main headquarters is situated in Toronto, Ontario, on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. Toronto itself is a word that originates from the Mohawk word takaranto, meaning the place in the water where the trees are standing. As participants and guests in today's webinar, we are coming together from many different places around the world. We encourage you to learn about and acknowledge the land from which you participate.
And we're now going to give a listen to our diversity and inclusion statement.
Hi Mama is committed to fostering an inclusive and welcoming environment for our employees, customers, and community. Hi Mama welcomes and celebrates individuals of all backgrounds, orientations, and identities. Our Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee aims to ensure we provide a safe environment for everyone to thrive while bringing their authentic selves to work. Our mission is to promote an inclusive workspace for all employees through education, discussion, and celebration of our differences. Embracing these differences while coming together with a common purpose is what makes our team extra special.
Okay, and some quick housekeeping items before we get started. We are recording this session as always. If you do have to pop off for any reason at all, do not worry. You will receive a recording and the slides by next week. As well, if you do need the closed captions, please make sure you are hitting that CC tab on your Zoom. We are also recording with the closed captions enabled as well. In terms of certificates, so again, for everyone joining us at our live webinar today, you will absolutely receive a certificate of participation. Those will be sent out by early next week. So don't worry if you don't see the certificate today. Don't worry if you don't see it tomorrow. We will absolutely get those to you by next week. And lastly, if you're having any issues at all with your Zoom, I certainly hope you aren't, but if you do have any issues, please make sure you're consulting support.zoom.us. They will be able to support you with any issues you are having. And lastly, hi Mama, welcome. If this is your first time joining us, thank you so much for being here with us. Let us know in the chat if this is your first time joining. I'm so excited to have you here. On top of our fabulous professional development community, our webinars, our podcasts, if you didn't know, Hi Mama is also an amazing childcare management app. So our goal at Hi Mama is to make the lives of directors and educators and families that much more easy throughout their day. So Hi Mama supports in parent communication, contactless billing, photo sharing, portfolios. We have it all in Hi Mama for you. If you are interested in learning more, Kaya will post a link in the chat and we would love to show you around. And if you do join the Hi Mama family, know that you will receive amazing world-class support. I used to be on our support team here at Hi Mama, so did my fabulous co-host Kaya. We can absolutely vouch for the wonderful group of humans that are waiting to help you make this big change at your center. And if you didn't know, on top of our weekly webinars, we do also have weekly podcasts that I highly recommend you check out. Again, we have hundreds of free activities to support you with lesson planning and curriculum development in your classroom. We release new industry articles as well. And if you didn't know, we are also a B certified company. And what that means is as we work with our amazing Hi Mama community of educators, we're also actively working to make a positive impact in the early childhood education space. And lastly, if it is your first time here and you've never seen me before, my name is Maddie. I am the host of our Hi Mama Helps webinars. I'm also one of the early childhood educators here at Hi Mama and the customer advocacy specialist. I also have my lovely co-host Kaya here with us. Kaya, do you want to pop on and share a little fun fact about you today?
Hey everyone, super excited for today's session. We actually interviewed Ellen a couple years ago on this exact subject matter. I just posted the link to her podcast in the chat. It is a phenomenal listen. So make sure if you have 20 minutes in your next week, even on the weekend, take a listen. It's a phenomenal episode. Fun fact about me, I'm going on vacation next week. I'm so excited. I'm going to the sunny Central America. I'm going to go to Guatemala with some of my friends. So I'm super excited for that. You're going to be in great hands next week. We have the lovely Morgan back with us, so she will be supporting you next week. But I am here today if you need anything.
Thanks so much, Kaya. All right, and now our fabulous guest, Ellen Drolette. Ellen is an early childhood educator and founder of Positive Spin. Ellen, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are so excited to have you here. Feel free to pop on, turn that camera on, and we will get started.
Hi, everyone.
Hi,
I'm gonna, do you want me to just jump in, Maddie?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen, Ellen, and the stage is all yours. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start my screen sharing, and let me just get to where we're starting. I want to welcome you. I am so excited to be here and to share some information with you. Probably not real new information, but it's definitely, you need to be reminded. Even I need to be reminded of some of the things that I preach about. I'm just going to make this full screen. Let me just figure out where. Maddie, where can I
click? Yeah, you can just click that. It'll say slideshow in the top right corner for you out there.
Okay. Yes. All right. Thanks, Maddie. So my name is Ellen Drolette, and as Maddie said, I am an early childhood educator. I'm a consultant, an instructor, a parent, and a grandparent. And I have been in the field for about 30 years, almost 30 years. And when I started, it was a way for me to be home with my children because, as you all know, some people can't afford childcare, and I was one of them. And you know, we know that that's such a big conversation as well. So I started my family childcare program, and I have taken care of a lot of children over my time. I think my children, my own children, tried to figure out how many diapers I've changed in a lifetime. And it's a lot. So I want you to know that I'm with you. You can find me on Facebook. I have an author page. I have a personal page. I have my Positive Spin page, and I also have Instagram as well. So you can track me down at any of those places. If you have questions and you want to have a conversation, you can certainly get in touch with me. I wrote a book a few years ago about overcoming teacher burnout, and how I came to that was that I was mentoring so many providers that were just on the brink of just throwing in the towel and walking away. And they overcame it, but there was lots of strategies around how they overcame the burnout and didn't leave the field. And so in the book, I share a lot of vignettes of people that I mentored, and also give some additional information for strategies. I also write occasional articles for Exchange magazine. If you don't get Exchange, check it out. Amazing. So I want to say thank you for what you do. I see you. I see how hard everybody in education is working right now. Early childhood, you know, all the way up. It's been a heck of a couple of years. And I think that the silver lining that can come out of this is that childcare is being noticed. Early childhood education is like on the forefront. Finally, people see how essential we are for the world to work. And that's pretty awesome. It took a pandemic, a global pandemic, but here we are. I know you're working hard, and I want to say thank you on behalf of the children and families. If you're feeling like you're not appreciated today, I want to tell you, you are appreciated. I have days just like you, and picture day is always a little touch and go. And as you can see from these pictures, I have the 3-year-olds in the back with the attitude turning backwards. You know, sometimes all you can do is just laugh. And this is this year's picture just to show you that it continues. One was on the verge of tears, one was turning around. So yes, I am human. Same thing happens to me. So we're going to talk today, and if it seems like I'm talking fast, I am. I want to get a lot of information into a short period of time. So feel free to follow up with me if you need to. So we're going to talk a little bit about, sorry, I was moving the screen, defining workplace culture, the impact of what the culture on ourselves and our work is, and how we can create strategies around that. Now, I want you to think about what workplace culture is. And it's around the practices. What do we do every day? How are we showing up to work? What is our attendance? Are we late? Do we walk in when the families are walking in? And the most important of all is attitude. Like, how are we showing up? The physical environment, the vision, the values, the mission, the growth mindset. So all of those pieces are what make a workplace culture. We hear people talk about toxic cultures, and they're a thing. We know those places. We probably all worked at a place where, there was a lot of negativity. And what happens with negativity is, you all know, it brings everyone down. So on the opposite spectrum, we know that optimism, positivity, gratitude, all sort of tip the scales the other way. What we want to focus on is, I talked about attitude, and there is something to be said. I didn't think it was that easy to make a change like that. I want to tell you a little story about somebody that I worked with, and it was a coach. I was becoming certified in appreciative inquiry, which is just a different way of looking at things. It's a framework. It has a lot to do with positive psychology. The two of them are sort of, meshed together. And I worked with a woman named Jacqueline Kelm. Her book is The Joy of Appreciative Living. And she coached us, and she asked for a volunteer. And, this was all virtual, and I, being the extrovert that I am, had to sit on my hands because usually I'm the first one with my hand up. So I waited the appropriate amount of time. And when no one raised their hand, I did. And she asked me, is there something going on with you you're finding this a struggle? And I very frankly said, yes, Mondays. And everybody kind of like chuckled a little bit, and feel free to join me in the chat if Mondays are never your day either. So Mondays were the worst. Every child was overtired, sugared. They would show up just in moods. And I just never really, I was at a loss for what was going on here. So she said, well, how do you feel on those days? And I said, I feel depleted. I end up feeling resentful and angry. And I'm naming off all of these words. She then asked me, how would I like to feel? And I said, well, I'd like to feel grounded and balanced and, positive. So she said, well, when do you start thinking about Mondays being a tough day? And I was like, Fridays. That's when I stop. I don't look forward to it. And I start dreading it on Friday, which is kind of sad when you think about it. So she said, well, when you start to get that feeling on Fridays, I want you to say those words: balanced, grounded, energized. So I was like, all right, whatever. So I did that. I did it throughout that whole weekend. Monday came and the day happened. And I was like, oh, that must be a fluke. The next week, as soon as I got that feeling on Friday, I started saying grounded, positive, all of the words. It kept happening. Well, I had to do some reflection on that for an assignment. So when I did the reflection, all of a sudden it just hit me. And I was like, how could I not see this? How could I not know that I was the one not showing up? I was showing up not only with my glass half empty, I was poking holes in it and letting it run out. And I was already showing up with no energy and was already making assumptions about how the day was going to be before we even started. So that was like a major turning point for me. And I have to say that with a lot of things that I dread, I've made that pivot to start using words to, trick my mind into thinking that it's not as bad as it is. And it actually does work. One thing that we always need to be aware of is that when passionate employees start becoming quiet, that's a red flag. We need to say something's not right here. We need to have a conversation, no matter what role we're in. Why has somebody that's so passionate just suddenly doesn't seem as not compassionate, passionate? So how do we identify our organization's culture? Thinking about what you would tell a friend if they were going to work someplace. And I'm going to give you some examples of places in a few minutes of wonderful places to work that are world renowned. So if there is an organization that you can think of that just seems like it's magical, it's amazing, what is it that in your program you would like to change to be more like that? Who is the hero in your program? Why? What do you say about your company when you're asking friends to come work there? We know in those toxic situations where if there's a situation where maybe the leadership isn't so great, that spreads. And I'm in a state of 650,000. I'm in a really small state. I'm from Vermont. And it's a really tiny state. And word travels fast, man. It travels fast. So if there's poor leadership, you hear, and that says a lot. So if you're thinking about your own program, what's your favorite thing about it? What is the characteristic that really makes you love where you work? And how do people thrive in your organization? And if they're not thriving, do you know of a program that is, and what are they doing? So I also want you to think about your favorite question to ask a candidate for a job in your program, because I think that says a lot about who we are and what we're interested in a person. And one of the questions I would sort of pose to you is, I would ask you to tell me about a time where you felt that you really helped in a really challenging situation, and you felt really good about the decisions you made and the what happened in the end. Another way of asking a question in an interview is saying, what is your favorite thing about this work? What is it that you love the most about this? And, you'll hear the children are so cute. Like, try to dig deeper, ask some questions and get curious. I think that when we have that curiosity, people that are interviewing with us are like, wow, they really have an interest in what I have to say. And I think we can learn a lot from each other by doing that. So workplace culture has a lot to do with morale. We hear about low morale, and it's happening in education really all over. So when we think about morale, that's part of workplace culture, wellness, going the extra mile, finding the talent and leadership we need. So in this, we do a lot of self-reflection, because honestly, if you're looking to make changes in a program to keep your staff, because honestly, we want to stop burnout so that we're not having a huge amount of turnover. That's not good for anyone. It's not good for the leadership of the program. It's not good for the children and the families. And so we really want to just kind of squash that. So in this, we have to stop and take a moment and look at ourselves. We have to do some self-examination and think about who we are, what is our process, what are our values. When we go to work someplace, are we asking what the philosophy and values of a program are, and do they match up? And when was the last time the program maybe visited those values and missions? Maybe it's been 25 years and things have changed. And so how can we go about, identifying what our values are and how they match up with the program. I think it's also when you are doing an interview with somebody, asking them, you know, what is your value around early care and education? And I think that that's a way also you can dig a little deeper. So I want to talk about what we can learn from others. So 2 companies stood out to me that are doing it right. So one is Life is Good Playmakers. They're out of Boston. I became a playmaker through Life is Good, and they are the t-shirt company. And a lot of probably the Boston-based, Massachusetts, New England people know about Life is Good. But the work that they do there is all around optimism and positivity and seeing the goodness in themselves and others. And that is something that's so important in how we are interacting with each other. You know, we all have really tough days, but like how we respond is really important. A lot of times when I'm teaching classes like this, you know, especially around appreciative inquiry and getting curious and asking questions about what do we want more of, not less. What do we want more of? People are very quick to say, oh, optimism, positivity, that's so Pollyanna. But here's the thing about Pollyanna, and if you don't know the story, I suggest you look it up. But Pollyanna had a lot of things happen to her. And it wasn't so much what happened, but it was how she dealt with it. It was how she came upon her challenges and how did she react. And so she was a very resilient little girl. So when I'm talking about this, I'm not just kind of blowing smoke. I really want you to think that, you know, optimism is powerful. And there's been a lot of research done around optimism. If you look up Martin Seligman, he has a lot around optimism and also learning about what learned helplessness is. We know what learned helplessness is because sometimes we have children that practice a lot of learned helplessness. I don't know how to put my boots on. And the thing is that there can be learned optimism too. So in trainings, I've heard people say, I'm just a pessimist by nature, but you can change that. You can become an optimist. It takes work. And that's the thing about burnout and creating strategies. They're practices. So with practices, we need to create them. People don't become yoga teachers just because they practice. They have to get a lot of hours in. People don't become, I usually use Tom Brady as my example, but I know that that could be a little touchy with other parts of the United States. But Tom Brady, they say he's the greatest of all time in terms of quarterbacks in football and whatnot. And my reasoning for bringing that to the forefront is he didn't get that way by not doing anything. He got that way by working hard. And so when we're thinking about strategies and overcoming burnout, we want to think about them as practices. So the other place I wanted to talk about, I'll talk about it in a few minutes, is the Pike Place Fish Market in Seattle. So Life is Good supports childcare professionals and organizations to create life-changing relationships and optimal environments where our most vulnerable kids can heal, learn, and grow. This is the part I really love. The Playmaker program revolutionizes the focus of professional development of childcare professionals by focusing on the disposition, approach, and wellness of providers in service of their work. Wow, do we need that? Yes, we do. The work is grounded in the belief that to better care for kids, we must better care for the adults who serve them. I mean, it's a no-brainer. We know that play is so good for children. But what we fail to sort of remember is that we need that in our lives too. I love to go see live music. I love to go to the beach, walk in the woods. That's my play. And so if I don't make time for those things that really make me happy, I might turn into that pessimist. So finding the things that really make you happy. A lot of people will say like, oh, I got a massage and that's a way of overcoming burnout. having a massage is great. It makes you feel good, but it's not a practice. It's not a strategy. It's in the moment. It feels good. It releases tension, but we also need to think bigger than that. We need to think daily. What are we doing? So let's talk about the Pike Place Fish Market. So slinging fish all day, not fishes, fish all day in a fish market would seem like a really hard, stinky, not fun job. But they had a mission, and their mission was to sell only the finest and adhere to the highest standards of stewardship and sustainability. So they became world class. It became a tourist destination in Seattle. I believe it's in Seattle. And they approach each day to create the future they want, which also is really firmly based in positive psychology and optimism. So it changed their attitude when they knew that they wanted to adhere to the highest standards and sell the finest. They have fun. They're flinging fish around. And this is like a philosophy that any business, any program, any person can use in terms of a philosophy. Their philosophy was be there, play, make their day, and choose your attitude. That's huge. When we think about whose day we're making, when we're working in the jobs, when we're, in the so-called trenches working with children, we definitely either make or break their day. We have to be present. We can't have the cell phone in our hands unless we're taking pictures. But how can we make their day? Play, be there, and choose your attitude. Huge, huge pieces to really thinking about how we're showing up. As I said, optimism can be learned. It's a way to view the world. And it's not a belief that everything in the world is good and positive. Bad things happen. People get sick. People pass away. Horrible things do happen, but it's how we choose to react to them. I mean, it's not a matter of being happy when something happens. It's, what can I learn from this? And, what was good about this situation? What did I learn? And it's a lot like how I've chose to look at the pandemic. I know other parts of the world were closed down for a really long time. Here in Vermont, we were closed for 10 weeks, and it was hard, but also it gave me a chance to do all of the things I don't have time to do. Every closet got cleaned out. Everything that I could do in the house, I did. And that's something I never have time to do any other time. So looking at it from a different lens, making that pivot to say, like, what good came out of this? Take a breath, Ellen. Let me just take a drink of my coffee. So a lot of times when I'm talking to leadership, people who are directors, supervisors in their programs, it's really important. And I think young people, even my children, be present. If you're going to be there, be present. That means putting your phone down, turning it off, silencing it, and making eye contact with people so that they know that they are the most important person at that moment. We want to acknowledge challenges of other people. I mean, we really want to make sure that we are acting in the way that is with really good emotional intelligence and how we're asking people, wow, that must be really hard for you that your car isn't working. That's a huge challenge. Is there anything that I or your coworkers can do to help you out? So acknowledging eye contact. And something that's really important, and I've heard a lot about this over the years, is that families really want to be greeted. They want you to make eye contact with them and greet them. They are people. We don't know how their day started, but we have the power to turn that around. So as much as we might be getting burned out, the same thing might be happening with a family. They might be in the same situation. Maybe they're a doctor or a nurse. There's many scenarios. And sometimes even just that smile and eye contact when somebody comes in will change their day. So play, we talked about play in the lives of children, but I want to talk about 3 sort of vocabulary words that should take place in the lives of adults. Excuse me. And this came from Life is Good. When I became a playmaker, these were words that were used, and it's really important to understand how they came to be. So goodify is goodifying anything. So things that are monotonous, like folding laundry, and I'm only saying that because I have a pile sitting right next to me. So folding laundry, for example. What about if you had a race doing the folding the laundry with your spouse and yourself, or your child and yourself? Like, how fast can you properly fold all the laundry? So goodifying different tasks that kind of are drag. One of my friends, I'm just checking the time. One of my friends who used to work for Life is Good, she gave this amazing example. She lives in Boston, and she lives up on, I don't even know what floor, but it's a building, and she has to bring her garbage downstairs because there's no elevator, down the stairs and around the building, and throw it in a dumpster. Well, yeah, that would be a real drag. I wouldn't like that either. So she and her roommate came up with a way to goodify it. And what they did was they raced down the stairs, they timed each other, ran down the stairs, around the back, threw the garbage into the dumpster, ran back up, and then they would write their time on a whiteboard. So when people came to visit that didn't know about this little, goodifying that she had done, she said, "Oh, it's a game. And do you want to play?" And she would then explain, and they'd be like, "Yeah, we're good. We don't need to play that game." But that's a way to goodify a task that is kind of a drag. And you can do this at work with cleaning up at the end of the day. Any way that you can goodify or gamify something that's kind of a drag to do. It's a strategy. Thinking of your play as an oasis. It's a place. It's like an oasis. So where can you escape to? Is it a hammock in the backyard? Is it a yoga mat? Like, where can you escape to and have a place? And we'll call that an oasis. That is your play space where you can either meditate, you can do yoga. Maybe your oasis is in the middle of the woods. So thinking about that. For me, I love to be by the lake. I like to be by water. And I love a good cup of coffee while I'm sitting there too. So those are just some ways that we can incorporate play into our life. When I'm doing trainings with smaller groups, we'll create a play plan. And we do that through pictures and figuring out what it is we really want more of in our lives. And we create a pictorial collage. And that's a way that people can print it out. They can post it on their kitchen cabinet or put it as their backdrop on their computer. And it's a reminder that this is what we need in our lives. That, we can't just be all work, go home, scroll on our phone. It needs to be more than that, because that is the fastest thing that will burn us out. So make their day was what Pike Place said. And, that was part of delivering top-notch service, was making their day. So notice when a coworker handles a challenging situation and say, "Hey, I saw you deal with Alice's transition, and I want to tell you that was impressive. It was so great how you acknowledged her feelings and also, worked with the parents to allow them to be able to leave." So notice when somebody does something that's very positive. Notice when your partner, your children, somebody you live with does something that makes your life easier. I think that I thank my husband every single day because he does the laundry and he makes dinner. That's huge. He does a lot of other things, but those are huge. And so I notice it and I say thank you because I know that that's rare and I'm really happy about it. Say good morning to people. You never know what somebody has dealt with. You may say to yourself, well, I'm not a morning person. I don't like to talk to anyone before I've had a cup of coffee. And that's fine. But you want to make sure that you communicate that because people will just think you're being angry and negative. So make sure they know. One of the things I know about my son is he is not a morning person, never has been. And if I tried to talk to him in the morning before school, it would send him into a negative tailspin. So I just kind of kept it to a minimum. Didn't say a whole lot. When he's getting ready to leave, have a great day. I love you. Goodbye. When he got home, he was a chatterbox. So another thing that you can do is leaving encouraging notes for each other. I worked part-time in a resource and referral program, working with new Americans. And one of the things that I did was I would take like little candy bars and I would stick them in everybody's mailbox and just not say anything. So nobody would know where it came from. I would leave notes around that said, you're doing a great job. So think about ways that you can make someone's day. Pick someone and have it be a different person each day, but become that person that makes someone's day. So we talked a little bit about attitude. I gave you an example of mine. And believe me, by no means is my attitude always good. It just isn't. I do my best. I try to be an optimist at all times. But also we have to recognize that attitudes can be based on assumptions. We may take what someone else says as fact, and that might not be the truth. So we really have to make sure that we're, checking our attitudes and assumptions. And they can also be based on habits. We've always done it this way, so that's the way we're always going to do it. But there may be an easier way. Your attitude cannot be decided by someone else. You can choose to have a better attitude. You can say that person needs a better attitude, but it has to be their decision or your decision to change your attitude or their attitude. However, somebody's bad attitude can put you sort of in a bad place. So the other thing to note, and this is really one of the big ones I think that people many times kind of hit them hard when they realize this. Attitudes can be based on negative narratives. So I want to give you an example. So I try to call my friend and my best friend, and I text her and she doesn't text me back. And I'm thinking to myself, that's weird. She always texts me right back. Why isn't she texting me back? So time goes by and I think to myself, well, is she mad at me? Maybe she's mad at me. Oh gosh, what did I do? And you start going into this place and then you're like, well, that's it. I'm going to be mad at her too. And then when she finally texts back, she's like, sorry, my phone was dead. I was, in a dead zone in the parking garage someplace. Whatever it is, we make up these stories in our head, and we do it with families. We do it with our own families sometimes. So really knowing that our narrative in our head sometimes is not always based on fact. It can be negative. And we really need to sometimes be like, whoa, back up, self. I need to check in. Like, that narrative is not a true narrative. I'm making that assumption. So just putting that out there. So digging a little deeper, and I'm just like skimming the surface here. Motivation theory. Motivation theory is that theory when you have an incentive to work towards, or you know that somebody's going to be really proud of you for doing something. So, thinking about how people can be motivated and maybe reading up a little bit more on motivation theory. Not everybody is intrinsically motivated. It's not a natural response for everybody to be just like type A, I'm going to clean my entire house every single day. That's not, we're human beings and we're all different, and that's not going to happen. So thinking about motivation and what incentives can be put in place that would help people kind of become motivated. What are the behaviors we see and we want to continue? And as I say this, I want to think about how we're framing questions. We don't want to frame questions with staff or coworkers as, wow, there's really been some really negative behavior around here. Like, we need to change it. What are we going to do? What you want to do is say, you know, what's really great? It's really great when somebody smiles at me in the hall, and I really love that. How can we make this behavior continue? What can we do to make everybody's lives just a little bit easier? And if we're not seeing the behaviors, like if it is a really negative and toxic environment, what are the behaviors we're not seeing that we really need to sort of change that culture? You know, workplace culture cannot be one person's responsibility. And I learned that working in this resource and referral agency, that I alone could not be the sunshine committee. I could try in my very limited time, hours of the week that I'm there. I can just make it positive for whoever I come in contact with, but I can't change the morale by myself. So keeping that in the back of your mind as you're, you know, going through this, you want to do what you can do, but also acknowledging you can't make the decision for everybody. Communication is key. Don't let things get bottled up. Think about ways that you can say things using I statements that don't turn into you statements. I'm feeling, I'm wondering, I'm curious about. Those are ways that we can start a conversation. Communication and connection, that is what our jobs are about. We, in our world of dealing with children and families, it's all about communication and connection. Human connection is our work. And, you know, as we're making decisions for our program and children in our program, thinking about what's called the wholeness principle and appreciative inquiry. And wholeness means bringing everybody together in the program and not just making a decision because it seems like a good one that day, but bringing everybody into the conversation and having some back and forth about this. What's good about it? Where have we seen this work before? So thinking about how we can take that wholeness principle and incorporate it into our programs. The other thing that's great about wholeness when we think about how we can include the entire program in on making decisions is that when people have buy-in, when they are part of the process, when they're part of the conversation, they can own a little piece of that. And it becomes a little easier for everybody to take when things might change slightly. Lastly, the thing that I think is the most important is having a growth mindset. Being willing to look at other points of view and making, you know, you don't have to agree with everyone. That's not what a growth mindset is. A growth mindset is allowing someone to tell you their point of view. It doesn't mean you have to agree with them. It's just kind of expanding it, like being a rubber band. We can come out and we can go back, but let's be a little growth minded as we're kind of working through some of these strategies. So I want to hear from you. I'm hoping that you took some time to comment. If you have questions, I want you to throw them out there. And I think Maddie maybe has been following along. So I'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely, Ellen, thank you so much. That was so fabulous. I will let you take a moment, catch your breath, have a sip of water, sip of coffee. I'm going to go ahead and just take over the screen share if that's okay. Before we dive into a quick Q&A, we do have a couple questions that I'm really excited to chat about with you, Ellen. I am going to launch a quick poll to the audience. Just 1 second. I'll go ahead and take over the screen sharing really quickly if that's okay, Ellen.
Oh yeah. Do you need me to stop share? Okay. You got
I
it.
think we should be okay. Yeah. Thanks so much. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and launch our questions of the day for you. As always, we are curious to know, how do you feel about your current workplace environment? Are you feeling supported and set up for success at your center? Do you feel that you have the resources you need to succeed in your job, in your very critical and important job? And if you're interested in learning about how Hi Mama can help staff avoid burnout and feel supported, I know during Ellen's presentation there, I saw a few people write in the chat that with closed door policies, it's really impacted their educator and parent relationship, which is such a critical part in early learning and care, to have those meaningful relationships with families. So please reach out to us at Hi Mama if you're interested in seeing how we can help you refoster those relationships during COVID. If you have a closed door policy, especially, now is a really great time to find a way to communicate with your families in a new way. And we are very happy to support you through that. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to dive into a couple questions. So again, thank you so much. One thing that I wanted to chat about with you is, I know a big piece of burnout, as you mentioned, comes from not feeling valued in early learning. And I know that that is what most educators in the field unfortunately feel, because unfortunately, even though early learning is so important and so meaningful, it is quite devalued in a lot of places.
Yes.
So I think one thing that is so important is making sure that our families understand the value of our work, because they're a big component of making sure we feel recognized each day. And I know this is different for everyone in different centers, but not a lot of families have that full knowledge of why early learning and care is so important. And that's where a lot of comments about being babysitters comes. And that's never nice to hear. So I'm wondering, do you have any advice on how to communicate the value of early learning to the families at our centers?
Yeah, I mean, I think that finding maybe some key phrases, that one that I like to use is when I'm meeting with families for the first time, I talk about the amount of brain development that's happening in the first 5 years. So we know that 80% of brain development happens by the time they're 3, 90% by the time they're 5. So what is that telling us about the foundation we're laying as we're taking care of children in the first 5 years? This says a lot. I mean, the first 5 years have everything to do with the next 85. And I think Eleanor Roosevelt might have said that, but it truly does. So, I try to let parents know just like how essential this piece of early care and education is, and why it should be valued. And there is always going to be people that are going to not respect. And, as a family childcare program, I get it. Like, sometimes we're just the scum on the bottom of the shoe, and, we have to just like wipe it off. But it's really important. And we also need to be the professional. So show up as a professional, talk like a professional, and come up with those little tidbits of facts that you can, kind of just throw out there, almost like an elevator speech.
Absolutely. And I like your point about having like professional conversations and using professional terminology as opposed to trying to make it as simple as possible for the parent to understand. I see what you're saying in the sense of using that proper terminology and developmental language so parents can really understand the impact and what's going on.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I mean, it helps tremendously.
Absolutely. And another question that I wanted to ask you about is, if you have any advice for directors on how to openly communicate with their staff about burnout so that we can avoid burnout being this stigma or something that we don't want to admit we're feeling. We want to come across as stronger until the point that we fully just fall flat because we haven't been sharing how we're feeling.
I think one of the things that's really important, and it's hard because I think sometimes in this job, we tend to kind of brush things away because we don't want to have to deal with them. But mental health is super important, especially now with everything we've just gone through the last few years. But it probably, in talking about burnout, it's really important to talk about mental health and giving staff the option to be able to come to you and say, like, I need help. I am not doing well, and making mental health a conversation that isn't, mental health is not, it doesn't have to be a stigma. So making sure that there's a policy out there that you can come and you can help. That's a big one for me. And in my book, I talk a little bit about that piece, but communication is key. You have to be approachable. So I think that just having a constant conversation about, what are the strategies everyone's using right now to, get through, and what can we each do to make this a little easier for each other?
Absolutely. So what I'm taking away from that mainly is keeping an open door policy and making sure your staff not only feel supported, but feel safe coming to you to say that they're not okay, and it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah, it is okay to not be okay. And it is like, we, as if we're the leader in the program, we have to be the ones that take away that stigma and say, like, if you're not doing okay, let me know, and we can find a way to help you out. One thing with early educators is that we are people pleasers, and that means that we will bend over backwards, not say no, we'll do whatever it takes. And sometimes it's a matter of somebody else just saying, like, hey, why don't you take a breather and, take a day, take a mental health day, which is hard because we're so challenged right now with finding staff in early care and education. But, thinking about working mental health days into sort of the overall scheme, if that's at all possible in programs.
Yeah, absolutely. Making sure that all of our staff know that, it's completely understandable and expected that you will at some point feel burnt out, and it's much healthier and more productive for everyone to be honest about it, because who it's really impacting at the end of the day is the children we care for, and no one.
Right. And I think I just saw somebody said, treat your staff, equally. I just glanced at it for a second, and yes, you have to treat every single employee as they are the most valuable player. And that, if you haven't noticed something that someone does, take a minute and try to notice something good. It's like the child that's challenging, and we have to find something really good. And sometimes we have to dig really deep. It's the same thing with employees. Sometimes we have to just really look and find that thing that they're doing and say, you know what, you're doing a great job. So
absolutely. I know we are running short on time, but I do have one last question for you that I'm sure many directors and educators will appreciate chatting about. How would you provide advice to someone who is working on being optimistic and overcoming burnout in themselves, but they're working alongside a colleague who they're butting heads with, and who is not putting in the effort to try and battle their own burnout or be optimistic in the classroom? Like, what should an educator do in that situation?
That's a hard one, because bad attitudes, they are contagious, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that it's that piece of, sharing information, trying to get those people to maybe read a book on burnout if you have it, share some strategies. There's lots and lots of ways that we can do that, but it is a challenge. And I think that, another thing that I always tell people is find an affirmation or find several affirmations and post them up where people can read them. It's not going to change overnight. And if it's a total workplace culture issue, then there's a lot that has to change.
Right. Absolutely. So kind of going that, I feel like that almost ties back to the first question of, if there is one educator who is working hard to be optimistic in the classroom, but they're butting heads with a colleague, making sure that the director or supervisor has an open door policy where that teacher would again feel safe to go and explain.
Right. And I think too, also, knowing what they're going through. Yeah. Sometimes we don't always know the whole story. So, having open communication and just saying, hey, I noticed you seem like you're in a really bad place or a bad mood today. Like, is there something I can do that would, help you? So I think that
Mhm.
also noticing that and having that open communication, because I think a lot of times people tiptoe or walk on eggshells and they don't dare to say anything.
Oh, 1,000%. Yeah.
Yes.
Facilitating that human connection is so important.
Yes.
Well, Ellen, thank you so much for being here with us today. That was such a fabulous presentation. I know everyone is taking away so much. Everyone in the field of early learning can absolutely all relate to this topic. So I really appreciate you being here and sharing your time and knowledge with us.
Thank you so much, Ellen. Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.
You as well.
All right, everybody, before we wrap up our fabulous webinar today, we do have a couple quick things that my lovely co-host Kaya wants to share with you all about what is going on the social media side of Hi Mama.
Thanks so much, Maddie. What a great presentation, Ellen. That was phenomenal. So just looping in here, what's going on with us in social media. We've just gotten a bunch of messages actually in our circle time. People, how they're celebrating Black History Month in the classroom. There's lots of bulletin board ideas, different classroom decoration door ideas, some really, really great ways to really highlight all the amazing people who've contributed to Black History Month and all of their amazing contributions in the field of early childhood in particular. We've put out a lot of blog posts in the last couple of weeks here highlighting those individuals as well. If you'd like to join the conversation on Circle Time, I will put it in the chat here. Come say hi to us, and hopefully we can see some really great ideas.
Thanks so much, Kaya. And before we wrap up, of course, I just want to give a quick reminder that you will receive our show notes email. So with the recording of today's webinar, as well as the slides. So just keep an eye out for those. You will receive those as well as your certificate by early next week. So again, do not worry if you don't see your certificate or the recording by today, or even by tomorrow. You will absolutely see it by early next week. And absolutely keep an eye out for that show notes email, because if you do have any further questions for Ellen, we have linked her different website and social media accounts. You can get in contact with Ellen if you do want to continue the conversation on burnout. In regards to next week, same place, same time, next Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern time, we will be here again, and I hope you can be as well. We will be talking about how to teach children to embrace differences. It will be an absolutely fabulous webinar, so please register now, and I hope to see you there next week. Otherwise, thank you so much again for taking the time out of your very busy weeks to sit down and spend some time with us. We greatly appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you all next week. Bye.